Today we're talking about Cuckoo, directed by Tilman and starring Hunter Schafer and Dan Stevens. Hey guys, Jake from Curtis Reviews here in the editing bay. Just wanted to let you know I kind of bungled the title of the movie. I think it's supposed to be called Cuckoo. I say Cuckoo. I kind of butchered Dan Stevens' character's name, Mr. Koenig, Mr. Koenig. I don't know. I'm doing my best. Don't hate me. Thanks for watching. See you in the future. This is a head scratcher of a movie, so before we get into it, please don't forget to like and smash that subscribe button as we are trying to hit our next subscriber milestone of 500 subscribers. This video is also going to discuss spoilers, so pause here, go watch Cuckoo, and then come back and let me tell you how to feel about it. Now, let's get into it. Cuckoo tells the story of Gretchen, a 17-year-old girl who is whisked away to the Bavarian Alps with her family, who aim to start building a mountain resort empire. Having very recently lost her mother, Gretchen misses home and very much wants to fly the coop, but as she settles in and begins working for Dan Stevens' mysterious resort owner, Mr. Koenig, we begin to see that this chicken may already be losing her head. All is not well in this little mountain town, and you may start to go mad thinking about it. Cuckoo is not the movie you think it's going to be. The advertising campaign for this was just as strong as the one for Longlegs, and it's coming from the same studio, Neon. It was unfortunate that the trailer was so good for this because I had my hopes set pretty high. And when I got into the movie and I was sitting through it and kind of taking it in and digesting it, it definitely was not what I thought it was going to be. What it is an excuse to beat the fuck out of Hunter Schafer because she gets the shit kicked out of her this entire movie. Head trauma, she's like got her arm in a splint through the second and third acts of the movie basically. There's so many ideas on display in this movie and it's really hard to get a read on everything. It's so disorienting that you can't really latch onto anything about it. They're talking about divorce, family lineage. Hunter Schafer's character Gretchen falls asleep a lot. She gets a lot of head trauma, so there's some dream logic ideas being thrown out there. Is this really happening? I like a disorienting movie. I do. I like when something is confusing. It's hard when there's no anchor message or symbol that's making sense of everything. That is a really big problem in this movie. There are some really interesting ideas on display. They're just very messy. It's inventive and confident in a lot of ways, and Tilman definitely can direct the hell out of a movie. I wonder if maybe there was just a little more control on the script and the editing and the pacing. It feels a little bit like they just ran with a thread and it got away from them. The characters in this movie have very unclear motives. It becomes more apparent later, but even then it's like, why is this character here? And you get that sense that this is very much like a stranger in a strange land. Gretchen is pulled out of her, what we think must be somewhat normal life with her mother. She's a musician. She's kind of got like a punk rock look to her, like maybe she was in a band. She clearly loved her mom and she had a strong affinity for that aspect of her family. And now she's being not only put into this new surrogate family, so to speak. She knows her dad, but she's not quite ready to accept his new wife and Alma, her half-sister. Okay, like I get it, like she definitely seems out of place, but there's nothing to really establish like why she's weird. She's not really weird. She's like kind of just interacting with all of the other weird and off-kilter people around her. That might be just a specific choice in direction. Singer just wants the viewer to feel confused. I'm all for that. What's the point of it? It doesn't leave me with anything but just consternation. As mentioned previously, there's a lot of sleeping, head trauma, passing out, and while this could just be a method of showing the audience that time has passed, very clearly also trying to make you think that, is this all a dream? Is this really happening? It does have a dream-like quality to it, especially when we start getting introduced to the monsters of this movie, who we kind of start to find out aren't quite fully a monster, like they're kind of half human, half hybrid bird thing. When they use that technique, what you find out is something else. You just think that Gretchen is hallucinating and then she's stuck in this like time loop. There's like this screeching noise and the screen kind of shakes. It was pretty groan-worthy to me when that would happen. I get what they were trying to do with it. It got annoying even after the first time. There could have been a more creative way to show the audience that something weird was happening. That could just be personal preference, and I think that is going to be how a lot of people feel about this. Like, some of these techniques are going to be very mind-blowing to certain audience members. Hunter Schafer's gonna bring a strong Gen Z audience into this, people who grew up with Euphoria, and this is gonna bring a big crowd out, and this could very well be their introduction to a sort of European, disorienting, like even a little bit of giallo horror. I think that's cool. I think this is a cool introductory point for those people. The movie could have implemented this kind of disorienting filmmaking in a more effective way. Leaving your audience questioning everything is fun. For a long chunk of the movie, I did really feel like I needed to figure out what was going on. Eventually, you get so exhausted with all the disorienting camera choices and framing decisions that everything else kind of gets lost in the muck. There was a lot of stuff in the marketing for that this is gory and bloody. There's blood. There's not really any gore. Unfortunately, the monster did not work for me. I did not find the monster very scary. That might be because I'm completely desensitized and I need something harrowing to be frightening. You first get introduced to these bird women things. Hunter is on her bike. She's listening to music. We kind of know at this point, based on Mr. Koenig's, don't go outside, like, let me come pick you up. There's something not right about being outside. And there's this really effective shot, really well lit. It's really well directed. It's my favorite part of the movie, where we see this thing running through the woods in the background of the shot. That is so great. I'm wondering why there wasn't more of that suspense, because when you see this creature fully revealed, it's not gratifying because it just looks like this mixture of like Wesker from Resident Evil, even a little bit like Scott Summers in the original X-Men movies with like the red glasses. It just looked silly. I thought this was going to be kind of a Black Swan thing. I love birds. I think birds are really ripe to be taken for interpretation of horror. Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds is a really effective scary movie. The birds aren't even like monstrous in that. They're just uncontrollable. They can fly, and that's a very intimidating idea for a monster. I get why they kept it more grounded. I think that horror, for whatever reason in this era, they are trying to keep it more grounded. It's not as weird and scary and brutal as it was when I was growing up in the late 2000s. I wish it had been a little bit weirder. I wish maybe we'd seen some feathers. The scene in the Love Shack where she's implanting that egg into Trixie, that should have been a little bit grosser. Gretchen first sees a woman vomiting in the lobby of the resort. Why didn't we see more gruesomeness to it? Maybe Tilman doesn't want that. Maybe Tilman's point in those things is more creating recurring motifs for how these creatures continue to be bred and take over the women that are brought to these resorts by their male partners. The directing and visual styles of the movie were not immediately apparent. There aren't really that many shots that stick out, but the more I thought about it, there's some interesting framing in the beginning of the movie when Gretchen and her family first arrive to their new home. You kind of see Mr. Koenig and Gretchen's dad and her stepmom reflected in the glass. While Gretchen's outside, they're inside. They're in on something. Like, there are some visual cues that I think are pretty smart. The main visual draw is Hunter Schafer. She is vibrant. She is incredible to look at, just a unique and emotionally available and giving actor. There is a very apparent natural horror to the setting. It's in the mountains, kind of like The Shining. It's desolate. It feels like there's no one around. But this also kind of makes it weird with our character motives, because why does Henry, the police officer, just latch onto Hunter? Why is she the one that he's fixated on? That's what doesn't always make sense to me. Mr. Koenig has this weird connection with her as well. Are we supposed to think that she's one of these hybrid bird things? She is kind of figuring that out too. Is that what is implied with the final acts? There is something effective about this directing and filmmaking, because I couldn't stop thinking about this leading up to filming this video. I gotta give Singer props for that. There's also a lot of framing used on an amplifier, bass guitar. Why were these instruments in here when really the only payoff is that you use headphones later? Again, it's another little gimmick that's thrown in here. Oh, this is how to avoid the creatures. I think it would have been cool to see some kind of final act where Hunter was just ripping the bass guitar. That frequency just messes with the bird people and makes them explode or something. That's what I mean by weirder. Like, that would have been a fun idea. This could also have been another problem with my theater. I didn't think there was enough music in this. The music choices in the soundtrack are great at establishing Gretchen's character. We see that music is important to her, and then later on in her forming a connection with her stepsister Alma, music can really lead an audience into feeling a certain way, and there's some sound design and it's purposeful and it is effective, but it does not happen enough. I think these are all directorial sound team choices that Singer and his crew made, and they're purposeful. I didn't vibe with it. So with all of my commentary here about the directing style, visual style, sound, all of the ideas that it's trying to land and doesn't really cohesively mix together, it did lead me to think that this is going to garner some kind of cult audience. It really is. Hunter Schafer is undeniable in her star power. I don't quite think that she's at final girl level yet. I really hope she gets into some kind of cool Blumhouse picture or makes some kind of deal with Neon to do more movies like this, because she really has the makings of becoming a great horror actor. She's the best part of the movie. You've probably already picked up on that from me. You cannot take your eyes off her. She is so powerful and commanding, doing the best acting here. She is making the movie interesting from start to finish. I'll just kind of finish up with a couple of stray thoughts and interpretations here, but there's a scene right near the end of the movie that's pretty interesting where Alma and Gretchen are at the doors of the hospital about to leave. Gretchen had tried so hard to escape. She finally came to this form of acceptance that, okay, I'm done. I've been through so much, I'm not gonna push myself anymore, we're just stuck in here. It's this weird acceptance. Grief can really grip you like that. So I get it, and it made Gretchen even more relatable. But more importantly, what I see is that there's no geographic solution to an internal problem. I just found that to be a really effective analogy in the movie and definitely worth being celebrated. My immediate reactions to this movie were so strongly averse to it that I almost wanted nothing to do with it. It's to its testament that it kept me thinking about it. I would rather have a movie that makes me want to think and talk about it than a movie like Deadpool Wolverine 10 times out of 10. I want a movie that's challenging. There's definitely a lot of stuff to pick apart here. The movie overly explains itself and it's not very scary. You may react to this more positively, and this might be one of your new favorite movies, and I hope that it is. So anyway, what did you think of Cuckoo? Was it worth the price of admission, or will you wait to see it on streaming? Are there any other movies like this that you would recommend to me to watch so that I can discuss it on this channel? Leave all the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe before you leave. I really appreciate you all for watching this video and continuing to support the channel. Until next time, I hope you have a fantastic day. Don't go stay at any strange German resorts. Do a chicken dance or something. I don't know. This movie made me feel really weird. Peace.